James Luxon, delighted to be joined with Andy Clarke. Andy, how are you, sir?
Very well, hiding from the heat, like everybody else has been the last couple of days, I think.
Absolutely, it's definitely a warm one at the moment. You are going away into the heat again, out to Saudi very, very soon. Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk 2. Let's talk about that fight first of all. Firstly, reflect on the first fight. Did you expect what happened to happen?
By the time we came around to fight week, I'd changed my mind completely from a couple of months before when I heavily fancied Anthony Joshua to picking Alexander Usyk. The reason being that we could see that Joshua's plan was to box him, and I just didn't see how that could work. Usyk was extremely confident. His whole team were extremely confident, and I just felt that the way that Joshua was planning to go about it, because you didn't get the sense that it was some kind of double bluff, would just play into his hands. I didn't say it with complete certainty, but a few of us on the Sky team, which I was at the time, were the same. We'd picked Joshua originally, and then we changed our minds during fight week. So I wasn't that surprised, and I thought it was fairly chaotic from Team Joshua on the night. Some of the stuff coming from the corner was pretty bewildering, and he was comprehensively beaten.
I mean, that night he seemed to have 3, 4, 5 different voices in the corner, different coaches in camp. He seemed to have too many people around him at that point. This time round, he's again made another change to his team. He's brought in Robert Garcia, and he's kept hold of Angel Fernandez. Do you think that's a good thing for AJ?
I struggle to see how you can really make too much of a difference in such a short space of time if you're Robert Garcia, but maybe he doesn't feel like he needs to do all that much. It's more a case of reminding him of why he's a good fighter and what has given him success in the past, and trying to boost his confidence if anything, because everybody needs that from time to time, particularly when you're coming off the back of a loss. And it's not like he's become a bad fighter overnight. You know, it's a cliche, but it's true. But it didn't go to plan in that first fight. He didn't optimize what you would look at as being his natural advantages in that fight. He just didn't. He just didn't manage to get anything going at all. So I don't think Garcia is going to be looking to try and teach him anything particularly new. Just fresh eyes coming up with the right game plan and getting him mentally in the right place. I think it was fairly inevitable that he would make further changes after that defeat, because, as you say, the corner was a bit of a shambles, to be honest. There were plenty of people piping up in there, and some of the things that were being said were very misleading. Joshua seemed to be believing them. He said a few weeks ago at the press conference that, given what he was being told in the corner, he felt like he was winning. And I was just waiting on the night for somebody to tell him, with a couple of rounds to go, or from any point with 4 rounds to go, you're losing. You need a knockdown. You need a knockout when we got to the final stages. But that obviously that didn't happen. But he's made the changes. And when anybody loses, we obsess, don't we, about what are they going to do differently? And it's understandable, because if you've lost, you do have to do something differently.
Absolutely. You mentioned that obviously the advice he was given, he felt like he was winning, he was being told he was winning. He also came out and made a comment saying he felt like he was like Muhammad Ali in there. Because is it because of what he was being told, or is it because of the way he felt in there? But some of the blame has got to go to Joshua himself. You know, surely you know yourself what you're doing in the ring, and surely you can read a fight after you've been fighting for, over 10 years.
Yeah, that was a pretty alarming thing to hear him say, to be honest. And it doesn't bode particularly well for the rematch, to be frank, because you're right, you should be able to figure it out for yourself. And I do think that is the difference between him and Usyk, and also Fury. I think those two are just able to do things on the fly and figure things out for themselves in a way that he probably isn't, because Fury's been boxing for a really long time. Usyk took it up when he was about 14, 15, I think. So he's not been doing it maybe that much longer than Joshua. But people forget just what a short amount of time Joshua's been boxing. And what separates often a really good fighter from the absolute top level is that ability. Some fighters need to be told what to do, and then they can put it into practice. And that's no easy thing, particularly at the highest level. But others don't really need to be told what to do. The trainer is there as a voice of confirmation in a lot of ways, sometimes just to confirm to them when they get back to the corner that what they've decided to do is the right thing, or it'll be a joint decision. You need somebody in there making that assessment for you, but the best fighters generally will be able to do it themselves. And I do think that's a dividing line between AJ and those top two in the division, I would say, in Usyk and Fury.
Do you think with Usyk and the fact he's got the adaptability and he's got the game plan A, B, C in his head himself already, and like I say, being able to adapt to any game plan or what he's facing in the ring, does that counterbalance the fact that he's a small heavyweight, obviously coming up from cruiserweight?
Yeah, I think it does. And I'm really fascinated by what we're going to get from him in the second fight, because, as I said before, when you have a comprehensive result in a fight and then you get a rematch, it is not normally what happens, because rematches usually come off the back of something contentious or something close. Not so much in recent times due to all these rematch clauses that we've had, but we tend to look at what's Joshua going to do? He's got to do something different. What's he going to do? Nobody's really talking about what Usyk is going to do. I think Usyk will definitely make adjustments from that first fight. He's got 12 rounds to learn from. He is bigger this time. You can see the pictures in the gym. He's bigger. He was 15 stone 11 in that fight against Joshua. And I think he was wary of Joshua. He was maybe a little bit cautious as well as he boxed, because it was his very first fight at the absolute elite level of heavyweight boxing. Chisora's not that, with the greatest of respect to him. So he would have been wondering about Joshua's size and power and ability, and whether he could handle it, or rather how he was going to handle it, how it might affect him. He's seen it for 12 rounds now. I think he'll probably come in more like 16 and a half by the look of him. So around about that weight. And I think he wants to put that extra weight on for a couple of reasons. One, because it gives you a bit more bulk to soak up shots, and another because it might give you a bit more power. But I think he's going to try and knock Joshua out in this second fight. I think he's looked at him in the first one and he thought, okay, yeah, I can handle that. He did hit me with some shots. You know, we could see on his face at the end that he had been caught from time to time. He did hit me with some shots, but I think in the second fight, what we'll see from him is that he will be more aggressive. He's not gung-ho, but he will just be more aggressive in the way that he was at cruiserweight, get right on top of you, take punches on the gloves, block punches, catch and fire, basically, and just look to wear you down and wear you down and wear you down and knock you out. I think that's what he wants to do. I don't think he wants to go to points. It's a bit like what we saw in the second fight from Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder, potentially, because in that first fight, he got a draw Fury, but you know, we all thought he won, didn't we? Although he was perilously close to losing, of course. And after that, people are looking at the second fight and thinking, right, well, what's going to happen in the second fight? Well, Fury, I mean, he can just kind of do the same again, can't he? Just do it a bit better, and he'll win, because that was his first fight back at the top of the heavyweight division after a really long time out. And people were questioning, could he still do it? So he would have been wary of Wilder at that point. But after 12 rounds with him in the second fight, he just thought, no, I need to do this differently. I'm going to knock him out. I'm going to walk him down and I'm going to knock him out. And that's exactly what he did.
Absolutely. We've mentioned about Joshua's goings on outside of the ring and in camp and his changes. Usyk, a little bit different, a bit more serious, obviously out in Ukraine on the front line. Mentally, how's that going to affect him?
It's kind of hard to say, isn't it? It's a heavy weight. There's no question about that. It's hard to kind of imagine what sort of impact that might have on you, but it can definitely go two ways. You can use it as a source of inspiration, and I think it's much more likely to turn out to be fuel for him rather than it turn out to be a disadvantage for him. You look at the situation with the TV, you know, I think that'll be a boost for him, because his plan was that he would buy the rights from the Saudis and then give them away to Ukrainian TV, and the Saudis in the end, you know, cut out the middleman and say, look, you know, you don't have to do that. We'll just give them away ourselves. So I think he'll be really pleased about that. And I think that if he needs it at times in the ring there, if he needs to dig deep, then I think it will it will be a source of inspiration to him. I think it's much more likely to go that way rather than it be something that has hung so heavy on him that it's really affected camp and affected his preparation, because that's the key really. On the night, it is a product of what you've done for the previous 10 or 12 weeks. And if your camp has been impacted in any way, and we see it all the time, don't we, then it will show on the night. But if he's trained properly, then I think we'll see the best of him.
Prediction, Usyk stoppage, you feel?
I do. I think I'm not going to say Joshua can't win. That would be ridiculous and very disrespectful to him. And he's someone I admire enormously because of what he's achieved and the way he's handled himself under enormous pressure for such a long time. But I think Usyk is of that different level to him. And I'd be really interested to see how Joshua goes about it, because I think probably what he has to do is, people keep talking about how he's got to jump on him and rough him up and all this really, really basic stuff. And it's really easy to say, but you can't just step in the middle of the ring and start swinging against somebody like this. That's suicide. So he's got to keep it tight and just believe in himself, basically. Keep it tight, get that guard up, and try and do to Usyk what I think Usyk is going to try and do to him. He's going to need to trust his chin, take some on the gloves, take some anywhere. And when he gets in range, punch, let his hands go and just keep doing it, because that's the only way I think he's going to make real serious inroads. But yeah, if I had to put any sizable amount of money on it, I would say Usyk stoppage, probably around 9.